Hi, and welcome to Avatar 2020. We have a day of seminars today, and this is the first one. I will welcome Niklas Molinder, who will tell us more what music creators need to know to be rightly compensated. Welcome, Niklas Molinder. I will leave this 45 minutes to you, and back in the end and say and end the seminar. So welcome, Niklas, and please start. I will disappear from the screen and you will have the screen for your own.
Thank you so much, Åke, and thanks for watching. It's an honor to be part of Live at Heart 2020, and it's a bit special. I'm used to do this kind of presentations live with people in front of me. I hopefully have people in front of me, but in a digital way this time. So welcome. My name is Niklas Molinder, and I'm a songwriter and a producer. I've been doing that for over 20 years. And a couple of years ago, actually 5-6 years ago, I realized that there's so much going on behind the actual music production. Many of you music creators, you'll probably be aware of this environment. I'm broadcasting from my own studio, and this is where we want to be. This is where the music is created. And what we care about the most is what comes out of the speakers and what's going on the screen. But if we want to live from our music, if our music creation is going to be a sustainable profession, there are so many things that we need to be aware of. A few of the most important things I'm going to talk about today. There is a really, really deep dive into rights that you can do if you want to continue to learn more afterwards. But today I'm going to stay on a high level and explain the basics about what you as a creator need to know. I will start a presentation and walk you through a few really important steps. So I'm going to share my screen and start my presentation. If I can. There we go. Now I hope that everyone sees the presentation. So what music creators needs to know to be able to be credited and compensated properly? Yeah, so as I said, we are probably, most of us, we are aware of what's going on in this environment. We create the music. But when the music is done, when the song is ready to go out on the market, there are two things that we are dependent on to be able to live from our creation, and that is money, payments. If people are listening to our music on the streaming services, on radio, on TV, we would like to get paid for that. And to be known for what you do, credits is really, really important. So to be credited, that's a huge thing for us music creators. But for all the companies and the different sources that will broadcast and distribute our music out in the world, they also have a challenge. They need to know who did what, where and when on the song. And if they don't know that, one, they cannot give the credit, and two, they don't know where to pay the money. This discussion today, or this keynote, is about what's going on in the creation process and what kind of data and information we need to collect to be able to give this information to the services that distribute our music. I'm not even going to go into the subject of how much we get paid, because that is a total different discussion. I just want to make sure that you guys understand what you can do on your own as a music creator to make sure that the data gets to the right place. So we're going to talk about payments and credits. And it starts with a song. it's always been about the song. If we go back historically, the song was distributed on way back on a vinyl, then on the CD, cassette, and then it came to MP3, which was a terrible time for the music industry because no one really paid for music. And then streaming came along. And finally, we had a digital music distribution format that was sustainable and could give people around the world all the music they wanted in their pockets, in their mobile phones. But that also created a new challenge for creators and everyone in the middle in what we call the music industry, all the middlemen, because something happened with the way the data was collected from this environment where music was created and then distributed through the system. That was the reason for when I realized that, I felt that I want to do something about it. So I've done a few things to help creators to be more efficient in this situation. I've created a digital platform that was named Audley from the start, but now I have changed name to Session. That is a tool for creators to actually capture all the data and add all the important identifiers to it that we're going to talk about in a minute. So I really felt that I wanted to do something. And for the last years, I've been learning a lot about how things work. And I am, to be honest, a bit shocked over how bad data that circulates around the industry about the songs, and how much information and how much money that don't get to the right pockets because the information is not right. There is a blaming situation going on in the industry where everyone blaming each other for doing the wrong thing and cause these problems that we're facing. So what I want to talk about today is what you as a creator can do in your own environment, in the studio, to make sure that you do everything that you can do to secure that things are correct from the beginning. And as I said, it starts with a song, and that's what we care about, the song. But the reality is that behind the song, there are so much information that is linked to what we can hear, what comes out of the speakers. All this information is crucial for you to get your credits and get paid, and for all the companies and organizations in the middle to know that it's you that actually should have this money, for example, and that it's you that should have the credit. So how do we handle all this information? Yeah, first we can say that if we take what we call the song and divide it into two parts, because that's what it's about, composition and recording. And as a songwriter and producer many times, you need to understand the difference between a composition and a recording. A composition, that is the actual, it could also be called as a work. That is legally, if we see it from legal perspective, it is a melody written in scores. It's the lyric. It's information about who that have participated in this work, who wrote the song, their names, and also the split between everyone that's been part of this. That is the composition. So a composition or a work, that is nothing that you can listen to. There's no play button on the work. It's just information about who did it and also the lyric and the melody. But then the recording, on the other hand, that is what's created here in the studio and what you can listen to. And I can explain it in a better way to say that you have one song. Take Dancing Queen with ABBA, for example. Björn and Benny wrote that song, so the composition is Björn and Benny. And then ABBA made an original version of that song. And then there's tons of covers made on that song. So there's many, many covers made as recordings, but they are still linked and referred back to the same composition. So that is the main basic thing you need to understand. So now it gets a bit confusing because if you are a music creator, let's say songwriter, artist, songwriter, producer, and we're writing the composition, the work, we write words, or you can actually have a guitar in, and play the guitar, sing the melody, come up with the melody, write the lyrics, and now you're writing the composition, you're writing the work. So then you're a songwriter and you connected to the composition side. But then we put a microphone in front of your guitar. You're still in the same position, doing the same thing, but we record what you're doing. Then you are linked to the recording side, because now it's something we can listen to recorded in the speakers. And what's confusing and complicated for creators today is that you might have multiple roles. And today, one of the reasons of why I'm doing this today is that so you as a creator can understand the difference between the different legal roles you have depending on what you do in the studio. There are so many different situations. You might be in the fastest growing part of the industry that's called do-it-yourself, that you don't have any representation. You do your music, you act as an artist, producer, songwriter, you release your music directly out to the streaming services with no middlemen and no help from any representation. Or you're an artist with a manager, publisher, and a record label. It's so many different scenarios. So to be a creator today, it's very confusing. And therefore, I'm now going to start explaining what you can do to secure, what you can do to secure that the information and the data gets as correct as possible, as early as possible. To keep track of all this different information and all the roles that I've just been talking about, the music industry internationally uses 5 identifiers, and you see them on the screen right now. These identifiers are identifying every role and every work and every recording, so that the music industry can then distribute and give credit for the music that is created. Why identifiers? Yes, because we cannot use names and text strings, because I mean my name includes letters that's not even available on an English keyboard. So, and many people have the same name, so we cannot use just names and texts, because then we get big problems and multiple people doing the same thing with different names. That's going to be too complicated. So therefore, we have the identifiers. So we start with IPI. If we start from the left-hand side, IPI stands for Interested Parties Information. And if that is your identifier, you can equal it with your social security number. So, and that is your social security number as a songwriter, if you're writing songs. So each songwriter in the world that's linked to what's called a PRO, a performing rights organization. That is, if you're in America, you might heard of ASCA BMI. If you're from the UK, it's called PRS. Here in Sweden, it's called STIM. That's an organization that collects money for you when your composition is used. If you're a member of a PRO, you have received an IPI. Each publisher also have an IPI. So if you write a song on your own or together with other people, and you don't know your IPI and don't know the other people's IPIs, that's like you can compare it, go into the bank, try to get money without your ID card and your social security number. You will never get paid if you don't know your IPI number. When you have written a composition, that composition also gets an identifier when it gets registered to your PRO, to your STIM, PRS, ASCAP, etc. And when that composition gets registered, it gets an ISWC, International Standard Work Code. So from that moment on, all the involved APIs will be linked to that ISWC. When we then record something, a master and a recording onto that composition, it gets an ISRC, International Standard Recording Code. And that will, from that moment on, be the unique identifier for that exact recording. And on every recording, there are performers, producers, singers, instrumentalists, everyone that in one way or another participate on a recording needs to be identified. And we use IPN, and that stands for International Performer Number. IPNs are not used in the whole world. In the US, they don't use IPNs, but in Europe we do, and in parts of Asia as well. But it's mainly a European identifier, but also important if you then are a member of what's called a CMO, Collective Management Organization. Here in Sweden, it's called SAMI. In the UK, it's called PPL. In the US, they don't have that kind of organizations exactly as the CMOs, but there are other options that I can answer questions. If we have any Americans on the line, we can talk about how it works in the US. I am a member of SAMI in Sweden, and from SAMI, I got an IPN. These 4 identifiers has been there for a very long time, and those 4 identifiers you need to be very aware of, especially IPI if you're a songwriter and IPN if you're a performer, and most likely all of you represent both sides of this. A couple of years back, we got a 5th identifier, which might be a bit confusing, but since there's been so much complications with the links between all these different identifiers, YouTube, together with Universal, the record label Universal, wanted to solve parts of this, so they introduced ISNI. ISNI is an identifier that comes from the library world for authors, but now they wanted to add that on top of music as well. So ISNI is a combination about all the different identifiers. It does not replace IPNs, ISWCs, ISRCs, and IPNs, but it's kind of an umbrella identifier on top of it. And it's very new to the music industry, so time will tell how this will be done over time and how it's going to be used. But if we use the identifiers in a correct way, it should look like this. Again, we take Dancing Queen as an example. So it's Björn Ulvaeus, Benny Andersson that wrote the composition, and they have one publisher, Universal. So on the left-hand side, on the IPN side, you see all them represented, and they wrote one composition, and Dancing Queen, and that composition has one ISWC. Then we have a lot of recordings made out of this composition, ABBA original, ABBA live, and a lot of different covers. And on each recording, there are different performers. So this is how it should look like when the identifiers are used in a correct way. And the ISNI umbrella keeps track of the links between all these identifiers. Now, this example is one of the most traditional songs ever written, traditional pop songs. It's an evergreen pop song. And everyone should think that, wow, a big song like this with successful songwriters like this, all this infrastructure with the identifiers should be in order and look like this, as the example we see on the screen. But oh no. Even for them, the industry cannot keep track of all the identifiers. So last time I checked, just Dancing Queen as a composition had 84 different ISWCs. And this is because the music industry has not been able to link all the registrations and all the identifiers together. So when you have so many different ISWCs, and the weird thing is when you look at all the available ISWCs for Dancing Queen, you get versions with other names that is not Björn and Benny, people that are not even involved, and who knows how that happened, if it's fraud that people wanted to cheat and get money from this, or if it's just wrong somewhere. We don't know. But all this mess with the multiple ISWCs creates a huge problem, because we have all these thousands of recordings, ISRCs. And if we don't know which ISWC to link these recordings to, the money will not flow the right way to Björn and Benny. So imagine if this is the case for ABBA and Björn and Benny. What about the big majority of all the songwriters and all the artists, all the performers? It's so many errors and it's so much information wrong. So what you need to do as a creator is to make sure that if you are a songwriter, that you share your IPI and make sure that you get the IPIs from all the others you write the songs together with. And if you act as your own publisher, if you do it yourself, or if you sign with a publisher, it doesn't matter. You need to collect all the information and share it to whoever needs it for your representation, or if you need it to register your songs on your own on your PRO web portal. If you're a performer, you need to make sure that the producer, the person in front of the computer recording on the screen, gets your IPN so that they can register your participation. And as a performer, it's not enough with your IPN. It's also very important that it's linked to the ISRC that's going to be assigned later. So therefore, it's important that the producer gets it immediately. And the location of the recording is also very important for the registration. So you need to make sure that the producer know where that person is for the moment, because location, ISRC, and the IPN, and of course the role. What did you do? Did you play the guitar? Did you sing? What did you do? That information together is needed for that registration. And if that's wrong, you will not get the performing rights royalties when it's going to be paid out. So this might sound a bit complicated, but try to, as a creator, to simplify what I just said and make sure that you know your IPI as a songwriter and your IPN as a performer. If you know that, and if you share that information with your other co-writes or producers, you have done a big step forward. Then when the song is released to the market, if you have the opportunity to do that, check every now and then if you're a songwriter on your PRO website portal, so that where you can see all your composition and see that it's right, that it's not any disputes, because the majority of all the PROs provides really good web portals for their members, so you can see if there's any wrong. They will not call you and say, hey, check this out, you need to solve a problem, you need to do this on your own. But that is pretty simple. If you just log in, check that it's right. If there's an error, if there's something wrong, the best way is to reach out to the people that you wrote the song with and make sure that you have the same opinion about the title of the song and the split. A composition is 100%. And it cannot be less, and it cannot be more. If I'm writing the song, the composition myself, it's 100% to me. If we're two people in the room, then the problem might start, because do you share equal 50-50? Or was it my idea from the beginning, so I should have 60 and the other person 40? There are no set standards for this. It's individual for each composition and each session. So you need to talk about it. I know that talk about splits with other songwriters is one of the most complicated and hard thing to do. And you maybe not want to do that in the studio. I mean, I've been through so many times that you just wrote an amazing song, you dance in the studio, probably drink some wine together, it's late night, and who want to talk about the split then? I understand that, but make sure that you talk about it in the near future. because the big problem for songwriters is that the discussion about the split comes way too late in the process. And as a songwriter, you have probably written many songs after that, and you don't even remember. So talk together in the group, and there are tools for this. The tool I provide, the session tool, or formerly Audley, is a tool that you can use for discussing the split without having to do it face to face in the studio. You can do it when you leave the studio, the day after, the week after, but you need to have that discussion. Very important. So that's an overview of the identifiers. I would say the most high level, most important thing you need to know. And you also need, as a creator, to really make sure where the information should go. And again, it's different from person to person, because if you are represented by a manager, I would say that the manager probably will want all this information, and then make sure that the information gets to the right organizations and companies. Or if you do it yourself, you need to understand, where do I register the composition, and where do I register the recording before I can release it out to the market. Why this is so important? Yeah, it's because, as I said, that's the whole infrastructure in the music industry. Everything is based on these 5 identifiers. So if it's wrong, it will not be right. And we've been talking about payments, because this is the structure that makes sure that when a streaming service like Spotify, YouTube, or Apple, or Amazon gets money, they need to know where to send the money. And if there's a composition, if there's more than one person, they need to know how much percentage to send to the different organizations, so the money can get to you as a songwriter. And imagine all the numbers of companies and middlemen in the music industry is massive. And there's so many new songs, and especially now when everything is digital and pretty easy to get your music out on the market. There are an estimate of 40,000 new songs released to Spotify every day. That number is not really confirmed, and I've heard 30,000 from one source, but 40,000 is the number that I hear repeated the most. So around 30 to 40,000 new songs to Spotify every day. And imagine the massive amounts of data. And if it's wrong, it will not get to you. So you need to make sure that this is right. And the scary reality about how little money that goes to the creators. And now I refer to a study that was made by Citibank back in 2017 or 18. They did an estimate that only 12% of all the revenues that comes into the music industry, 12% of the massive amounts of money that goes into the music industry, only 12% got to the creators. And this is because of all the failures that's going on with the identifiers, that it's so messed up and the information is so wrong, so they don't know where the money goes. And where all the rest of the money goes, to the industry. There are systems for dividing money that's unidentified, that where we not know where the money should go. Then the money is divided differently based on market shares when it comes to labels, for example. The biggest labels get the most, and then it's a long tail down. So as a creator, make sure that the identifiers are correct. And the best way of doing that is to make it correct from here in the studio. We cannot do this every day as a creator, because we should create music, but be aware. And if you have 1, 2, or 10 songs, or the most successful songs that you believe that it's going to give you some cash, check those songs, maybe not your whole catalog, because it's the most important thing is this, that you have control over the songs that really brings you money. But all the discussions about the money, but this is also important for the credits, because when we go back to the CD days, there was what we call the booklet. When you bought the CD, you could bring out this booklet, and most of the time you had the lyrics, you had all the people that had been part of the recording, they were there, pictures from the studio. All that disappeared when we entered the streaming era, and who knows why, but we just faced the fact that there are not so many credits on the streaming services. All the streaming services I'm working with, they are, of course, they want to have credits for each and one of participants on a song, but they don't get it. And that is because we in the studio here, we are so bad of delivering that information. And that is also one of the reasons why I started my platform, Audley, because that's what it's for. You collect information here and you get your payments, but also the streaming services get the credit information and can display that. And I'm personally working with the biggest streaming services on new ways how we can get the credits on their services to customers in the world, more like the booklet were back in the CD days, where you could even have pictures and movies nowadays from the studio environment, so we can share with our fans and consumers out in the world how the process works in the studio. So therefore, all this information is so important. So to sum this up, when you are in the studio, metadata necessary for correct registrations, the identifiers, IPI, IPN, and ISNI. And when you have all that information, you also need to make sure that everyone involved have the same opinion about the title, the split. And when you have that, we can assign ISRCs and ISWCs, roles and recording location linked to that. And what is good is also if you keep track of lyrics and audio files, because lyrics are used on all streaming services today as a service for the consumers. And every time a lyric is used, you as a songwriter, if you wrote the lyric, you get paid for when the lyric is used. So therefore, the lyric is very, very important. There are companies today that earns a lot of money on providing lyrics to the streaming services, money that could go to you directly as a songwriter most of the times, because what they do, they rewrite your lyrics and provide that information to the streaming services. That could be done in different ways, but definitely much easier if you as a songwriter provide the lyric from the source, from the studio. Audio files are also really important today because what's called fingerprinting, as we most of us know it as Shazam, there are fragments, they sample fragments from the recording, and then that could be used for identification of your recording for different reasons. So therefore, audio files are also really important. So if you get all this information, and it might sound complicated, but it is not so complicated. Just make sure that you do it on the fly. Don't save everything for last and try to collect all information in the end, or maybe 1 year after you created the song. Take it step by step during the creation process. That will make it so much more easy for you. And it will help you to get your credits and get paid. So that's what I recommend you to do. As I said, I've created a service for this. It was named Audley from the start. We have changed name to Session, but it is a bit confusing for you. So therefore, I'm using the Audley example, because the app is still named as Audley, and it's available on any app store, and it's free. We don't charge you anything for that. So if you're a songwriter, artist, producer, musician, any type of music creator. Download the app, try it out. The new version that's going to be named Session will be released shortly, and if you just stay in the loop, or if you download this the Audley application, you will of course get information and updates when we release the new version. And there will be huge improvements and really nice collaborations. One thing I can announce, and we announced it some time ago, so it's not real news, but we are building our platform directly into the softwares that we use. I'm using Logic, but there are many others, and the first one that's going to be released with Session built right in is Pro Tools. So Pro Tools will, in coming versions, have the Session platform directly in the top menu. So you can easily, as a producer in charge of the computer, add the data on the fly, and you don't have to think about it anymore after. It's going to be super easy. The company was founded by myself, our huge Swedish songwriter producer Max Martin, and Mr. Björn Ulvaeus from ABBA. That's the reason why I've been keep referring to Dancing Queen all the time. So keep an eye on Session and Audley, because we will try to help all creators in the world to make this thing so much easier in the future. So with that said, I should check with Åke if we have any questions.
Hi. Thank you. Do you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Please, I know that you also have started a foundation that will work with to help musicians to get the right payment, to get paid for what they do. Please tell me about that foundation too before we.
Yeah.
End.
During the work with Audley and Session, I realized that it's not enough to provide a digital tool, an app for creators to collect the data, because the problem is that creators don't even know what kind of data they should collect. And if you don't have that knowledge, a tool is worthless because you don't know what you should use the tool for. So therefore, again, with Max Martin, with Björn Ulvaeus and myself, we decided that we wanted to get into the education side of the music industry. We want to educate the creators in the studios like I've done today. We want to learn them about the most important thing, the identifiers. And we want to do this in scale. We want to do this on a worldwide basis. So we started a foundation a couple of years ago called Music Rights Awareness Foundation. And the purpose is to educate music creators around the world about their rights and obligations linked to the music they create, so music creation can be a sustainable profession. And we started in Africa. We started a project in Rwanda, Malawi, Tanzania as a start, but with a clear goal to build a digital education platform as an app where creators very easy can find information directly in the studio or wherever they are. If someone asks, how do we get paid from YouTube? And high-level answer very, very shortly. And just a couple of weeks ago, I was very delighted to be able to announce that our foundation have joined forces together with WIPO. WIPO is a UN organization in Geneva, and WIPO covers the whole world with this type of activities to educate creators, not only music creators, but IP creators, anyone that creates any kind of IP. But we are going to start with music. So together with WIPO, we are going to build this digital education platform, and it will also be free to every creator in the whole world. We have started the work now, and hopefully in the mid-end of next year, the first generic version of this education platform will be released. And I can promise you some really nice features and some really interesting people that's going to be part of that project.
Thank you. Time is almost out. I'm very happy that you were able to participate at Live at Heart 2020. And everyone out there, please stay tuned. There will be more seminars coming. Thank you, Niklas, and have a nice day.
Yeah.
See you.
Thank you so much.